Hi, guys, I'm here, and today we're going to be taking a look at When Darkness Strikes. 5 true tales of unexplainable horror. Our first story is called The Vanishing Hitchhiker. I was hitchhiking home from a friend's house in the middle of nowhere. I decided to walk to the main road where cars were more likely to pass. It was maybe 5 minutes that I'd been walking when a car came barreling towards me. The driver rolled down her window and asked if I wanted a lift. Of course, I said yes. We got into the car and she told me she was heading about 10 minutes down the road to a gas station. She asked if that was near my house, and I told her it was perfect. When we got to the gas station, we stopped at the pumps, and I thanked her for the ride. As I was getting out of the car, she asked me if I wanted anything from the shop while she filled up. I told her no thanks. She went into the shop and I waited by the car. This is when things started to get weird. I waited for about 5 minutes and she still hadn't come out, so I walked into the shop to find her. When I entered the shop, I saw a woman behind the counter looking directly at me. "Can I help you?" she asked. I replied, "Yeah, where's the girl who brought me here? What's her name?" The woman looked confused. "Girl? What girl?" she asked. I started to freak out. Where was the girl who had given me a lift? Why couldn't the shop assistant remember her? I started to look around frantically for another exit, but there wasn't one. It was then that I realized I was trapped. As I turned back to the counter, I saw that the woman had picked up the phone and was talking into it in a hushed voice. After what felt like an eternity, she hung up and turned to me. "Are you sure you weren't dropped off here or something? There's no record of a girl bringing you here," she said with a hint of urgency in her voice. "No, I was definitely brought here by a car," I insisted. At this point, I started to panic. I could hear the wind howling outside and the rain lashing against the windows. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into total darkness. I could hear the woman scream, "Get out!" as I made a dash for the door. I stumbled out into the rain and started to run. I didn't stop running until I reached my house. I haven't been able to bring myself to look back since, but I know whatever or whoever was in that shop wasn't human. Our next story is called The Shadow People. I have seen shadow people many times in my life, but the scariest time was when I was working security at a nightclub. One night I was walking through the club when I saw 2 men standing in front of me. They were tall, thin, and looked like they hadn't bathed in weeks. They had long necks, like cranes, and were staring at the dance floor. I thought they might be part of the entertainment because the club had a reputation for hiring some pretty strange performers. I continued to walk forward, but then I realized that their eyes were following me. I tried to ignore them, but then one of the men stepped forward and blocked my path. "Can I help you?" I asked. He didn't respond. He just kept staring at me. It was then that I noticed something strange about his face. He didn't have any facial features. His face was completely blank, like a featureless mask. I started to panic and tried to move around him, but he moved with me, keeping his eyes locked on mine. I could feel my heart racing as I struggled to break free from his stare. Then, suddenly, he vanished. I turned to look for the other man, but he was gone too. I don't know what those creatures were, but I never want to see them again. Our next story is called The Doll in the Attic. I grew up in a big old house with my 3 siblings. One day we were playing hide and seek, and I went into the attic to hide. The attic was dusty and smelled like old wood. I could hear my siblings calling out my name, but I couldn't make out any words. It was as if they were speaking a different language. Then I heard a knock. At first I thought it must have been my imagination, but then I heard it again. I started to explore further and found a rocking chair in the corner. The chair was old and creaky, but it was also locked. I tried to open it, but it was no use. It was stuck fast. Then I turned to leave when I saw a doll sitting on a shelf. The doll was old and dirty and seemed to be staring at me. I tried to ignore it and leave, but I couldn't help but feel that it was watching me. I turned back to the chair and noticed that it was rocking slowly back and forth. I started to scream and ran out of the attic. I don't know what was up there, but I never want to go back. Our next story is called The Whispering Walls. I was staying in a haunted hotel room that had been used as a makeshift morgue during the war. I didn't believe in ghosts, but I was curious to see if I could hear anything. I laid down in bed and tried to focus on the sounds around me. At first, I could only hear crickets chirping outside, but then I started to hear whispers coming from the walls. The whispers were soft, and I couldn't make out the words, but they were definitely there. I tried to ignore them, but they were getting louder now. Then I started to hear footsteps pacing up and down the hallway. I could hear the footsteps getting closer and closer until they were right outside the door. I turned on the light, and everything went silent. I thought I was losing my mind. I threw the covers off and sat up in bed trying to listen, but it was silent. Then suddenly I heard a knock on the door. I jumped and stared at the door. Then I started to scream. Our next story is called The House Guest. I was babysitting my neighbor's kids when I heard a knock at the door. I opened the door to find a woman standing there. She was soaking wet, and I could tell that she had been crying. "Can I help you?" I asked. She looked up at me and said, "Do you know where I can find Sarah?" "Who's Sarah?" I asked. "My daughter, Sarah," the woman replied. "She's my daughter. She's 8 years old and has brown hair and blue eyes." "Sorry, but I don't know her," I said. I was about to close the door when the woman reached out and grabbed my arm. "Please, you have to help me find her," she begged. "She's in danger." "I'm sorry, but I can't help you," I said. I tried to pull away from her, but she wouldn't let go. "Please, you have to believe me," she whispered. "She's not safe here." I finally managed to break free and slammed the door shut. That's all I remember. I hope Sarah is okay. Thanks for watching. Which of these stories scared you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're looking for more scary videos, then check out more content. See you next time.